Okay, so tell me why Devin Haney just won against Norman and somehow answered none of the questions that we actually cared about. No pocket test, no chin test, just a whole lot of in and out. And you guessed it, more clinching than a Muay Thai seminar. And then, bro, the very next fight on the card showed exactly what real pressure is supposed to look like. How do you dominate an opponent but still leave the world unconvinced? Haney definitely won that fight, clean as day, without a doubt. And we all know that Haney would outbox Norman. That's not a surprise. But Norman Jr., he made it way too easy for him. Between the clinching and the smothering and the missing opportunities, this was the fight that should have tested Haney. And instead, it turned it into a masterclass on how to not pressure someone. Welcome to Abner's Counterpunch. Coming into this matchup, everybody wanted to know two things. One, can Haney take a punch at this weight? Two, would he stand and actually fight inside the pocket? But unfortunately, we got none of that. Instead, what we did get was disciplined outside boxing, which is totally great. We got selective entries, quick exits, and enough clinching to make Vladimir Klitschko nod in approval. And look, from a pure boxing standpoint, Haney was great. Sharp feet, sharp jab, clean distance control. He utilized the jab well, but he knew that Norman couldn't match his timing. He stayed on the outside, really took zero risks, and honestly, that's fine. It's smart. We all know that Devin Haney is an intelligent boxer, but this wasn't the performance that answers questions. It was the performance that actually kind of avoids them. Haney never had to bite down. He never had to roll with the real shot. Never had to sit in that mid-range danger zone, always keeping Norman right outside the jab. And the crazy thing is that Norman actually let him do that. So the real question becomes, did Haney dominate because he was levels above Norman, which in terms of boxing skill-wise, sure. But you could also argue that it was because Norman couldn't make him uncomfortable for for even one round. And that's where this whole fight starts falling apart. I thought the commentators were pretty funny too. The second that a fighter doesn't sprint backwards, does circles around the ring, they call it pocket fighting. No, Haney never actually stood inside the pocket. He did dart in, he fired, and escaped. And he did so before Norman's brain even loaded the next frame. What pocket fighting really means is trading options. It means staying close enough to get hit and trusting your defense. Haney wasn't trying to get touched. And again, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But don't gaslight me or the audience and tell me that that was exchanging. And if you think I'm being a little harsh, stick around. You'll see why I'm not. But first though, I gotta be super honest. The clinching was driving me insane, dude. I'm so over this becoming a boxing strategy because this isn't a strategy. This is a momentum murder killer. 2 steps in, wrap the arms, wait for the ref, repeat. If you want to watch clinch like this, we have Muay Thai for that. And the sad, crazy part is that it wasn't even all Haney's fault. Norman was helping the man clinch. And I'll show you. Look, Norman was not ready for the jab. He ate it clean the whole night. And even when Haney slowed the output in the latter half of the fight, Norman didn't take initiative. He just followed him around like an NPC waiting for his script to load. And look, Norman kept getting way too close. He kept jumping in with those gazelle hooks. And honestly, look, you cannot generate knockout power at 0 inches. He kept suffocating his punches. He crowded his hooks, he buried his shoulders, and honestly basically gave Haney a perfect excuse to wrap him up. In my opinion, look, I truly believe that Norman could have actually cracked him. The openings were actually there, but he never positioned himself to take advantage. But guess who did show how to pressure? The very next fight starts and instantly proves my entire point. Watch Benavidez. That is how you close distance without smothering your offense. Step in, set the feet, short hooks with leverage. He's not close, but he's not drowning himself. Now, of course, David Benavidez has lengthy arms and, maybe even a level or 2 above Norman, right? Skill-wise, for sure. But it's still the same thing. Real inside fighting, space to punch, enough room to work. No hugging, no stalling, just clean, dangerous, mid-range work. If Norman even had 20% of this approach, Haney's night might have looked very different. And what instantly comes to mind is that he could have, when he jumped in, take a step back, and then he would be within range to set off those short hooks and uppercuts. We still have no clue if Haney can actually take a punch at this weight, unfortunately. Norman never actually landed clean because he never created the space to do so. We also still don't know if Haney is comfortable exchanging on the inside. He never had to. The fight itself didn't ask that question. What we did get an answer to though is if Haney carries the strength at this weight, and I'll give him that. Dropping Norman early in the fight was, super impressive. But what happens when he faces someone who does know how to pressure like Benavidez? That is a question for a future fight though, I guess. So here's the truth. Haney looked good. He looked really good, but the fight didn't challenge him. Norman had the tools, but not the right strategy. And the clinching, yeah, dude. I hope we don't see more of that, but I feel like that's sort of a trend with some of these Haney fights, so it is what it is. Because when you compare it to, like the Benavidez versus Yard fight, you see what real pressure looks like. And just how Haney left questions unanswered, Canelo actually left answers on the table when he took on Crawford. Click here to see why I think Canelo could have done more in that fight, and subscribe while you're at it so you don't miss more breakdowns like this. See ya.